Peralta says her daughter's manager at work.
Mesquite police say there is currently no new information regarding her case.
Room shows the final moments before.
She was a devoted mother, a hard-working professional, and a dedicated National Guard member, someone who seemed to have her life together. But on April 17, 2019, Prisma Reyes vanished without a trace. The circumstances surrounding her disappearance were anything but ordinary. Surveillance footage, road rage incidents, and troubling phone calls left a trail of baffling clues, yet no definitive answers. Did she leave of her own free will, or was she the victim of something far more sinister? How does a young mother disappear in broad daylight, in the heart of a bustling city, surrounded by cameras and witnesses, leaving behind her most precious treasure, her 6-year-old son? This is the case that has haunted investigators, puzzled the public, and devastated a family. Let's retrace her steps, unravel the fragments of her last known moments, and explore the chilling mystery of what really happened to Prisma Reyes. Prisma Denise Peralta Reyes was a 26-year-old single mother devoted to her 6-year-old son, Dominic. Born in Veracruz, Mexico, Prisma immigrated to the United States with her family as a child, embodying the resilience and determination that would define her life. She served in the National Guard, an achievement that reflected her commitment to discipline and service, and worked multiple jobs to build a better future for herself and her son. Balancing motherhood with demanding roles as a paralegal, car dealership employee, and part-time dancer, Prisma was described by friends and family as outgoing, straightforward, and fiercely independent. Her son was her world, and everything she did, every long workday, every hard decision, was to give Dominic the best life possible. Her complex life also carried its challenges. Prisma was navigating the emotional aftermath of a tumultuous relationship and was in the process of rekindling ties with an ex-boyfriend. Despite the difficulties, she was seen as a fighter, someone who never gave up, even in the face of adversity. Her family's love and pride in her accomplishments were palpable, but that admiration turned to alarm on April 17, 2019. When Prisma failed to pick up Dominic from his babysitter, something she had never done before, they knew something was terribly wrong. For Prisma to leave her son waiting was unthinkable. That night, their lives changed forever as they began a desperate search for answers, plunging into the mystery of her sudden disappearance. April 17, 2019 began like any other day for Prisma Reyes, but quickly unraveled into a sequence of events that would baffle investigators and haunt her loved ones. The day was marked by tensions at her workplace, a car dealership in Dallas, where she had a heated argument with a co-worker over a parking spot. Despite this unsettling start, Prisma left for her lunch break, heading to E-Bar Tex-Mex to meet her ex-boyfriend, Ryan. Their lunch was reportedly tense, and Ryan left early. Prisma, however, stayed behind at the bar, drinking alone for hours. Witnesses described her as increasingly agitated, eventually causing a disturbance that led the bartender to cut her off. After leaving the bar, Prisma got into her white Jeep Wrangler and began driving. This was when a road rage incident occurred. 3 witnesses reported seeing her point a gun at another driver. Although this alarming event was reported to the police, Prisma had already left the scene before officers arrived. Surveillance footage from later that evening showed Prisma arriving at the Olympus at Ross apartment complex, where her ex-boyfriend lived. Her Jeep was captured on camera, parked hastily and blocking an intersection. Prisma was seen stumbling as she entered the building, appearing disoriented and emotionally distressed. Inside the apartment complex, Prisma lingered near the elevator, pacing and making a series of phone calls. During one of these calls, she reportedly mistook the person on the line for someone else, sounding confused and upset. Witnesses later recalled her crying as she moved between floors in the parking garage, though the details of her movements remain unclear. By 7:30 p.m., her babysitter became alarmed when Prisma failed to pick up her 6-year-old son, Dominic, something she had never done before. The babysitter contacted Prisma's family, who quickly realized something was wrong. Calls to Prisma's phone went unanswered, and she didn't return home that night. The following day, her Jeep was found abandoned in the apartment complex's garage, with her handgun still visible in the front seat. Prisma, however, was nowhere to be found. This marked the beginning of an agonizing search as investigators and her family pieced together the final hours before her disappearance. The investigation into Prisma Reyes' disappearance began almost immediately after her babysitter raised the alarm. When Prisma failed to pick up her 6-year-old son, Dominic, the babysitter contacted the police. Prisma's family, knowing this was entirely out of character, quickly joined the effort to locate her. Mesquite police wasted no time, launching a search that would lead to one of the most puzzling missing persons cases in recent memory. By the next day, investigators located Prisma's white Jeep Wrangler, abandoned in the parking garage of the Olympus at Ross apartment complex, where her ex-boyfriend Ryan lived. The vehicle was found hastily parked, blocking an intersection. Disturbingly, her gun, which she had reportedly displayed during a road rage incident earlier that day, was still inside the car, left in plain view. This finding raised more questions than answers. Investigators turned to surveillance footage to piece together Prisma's movements. Cameras showed her entering the parking garage around 6 p.m., visibly distressed. She appeared unsteady, stumbling toward the elevator. Prisma lingered near the elevator, pacing and making phone calls. Witnesses later described her as crying and confused. What stood out was that there was no footage of Prisma leaving the building. With multiple exits and areas not covered by surveillance, it became unclear whether she had exited undetected or met with foul play within the complex. The police also began interviewing those closest to Prisma, including her family, friends, and co-workers. The accounts provided a glimpse into her complicated life. They learned about the altercation at her car dealership that morning and her hours of drinking at the E-Bar Tex-Mex after her tense lunch with Ryan. The investigation turned toward Ryan, her ex-boyfriend, and the last known person to have seen Prisma before her disappearance. Surveillance footage confirmed his alibi. He had left the apartment complex before Prisma arrived and was accounted for at several locations throughout the evening. Despite initial suspicion, Ryan was cleared of involvement. Another troubling detail came to light. Prisma had confided in her family and friends about feeling followed in the weeks leading up to her disappearance. She had recently purchased a handgun for protection, and there were reports of her Jeep's tires being slashed. Prisma's behavior on the day she vanished, her agitation, the road rage incident, and her disoriented state fueled theories that she might have been under extreme stress or even drugged. Detectives combed through Prisma's phone records, but no significant leads emerged. Calls made that evening revealed her confusion. She had mistakenly referred to one friend as Ryan during a conversation, further suggesting she was not in her right state of mind. The parking garage became a focal point of the investigation. Police searched the area thoroughly, but no physical evidence was found to suggest what might have happened to Prisma after she was last seen on camera. The case quickly turned cold, with no signs of Prisma, no conclusive evidence, and a growing number of unanswered questions. As the days turned into weeks, her family grew increasingly desperate. They offered a $25,000 reward for information and organized community searches, but their efforts yielded no results. Investigators continued to chase down every lead, but Prisma's disappearance remained a haunting mystery. What could have happened to a young mother in a busy city, surrounded by cameras and witnesses, yet seemingly vanish without a trace? This question would continue to haunt both law enforcement and Prisma's family as they sought answers in a case that only grew colder with time. As the investigation progressed, the lack of tangible evidence fueled various theories about Prisma Reyes' disappearance. Each theory offered potential explanations but also raised troubling questions. Dallas, particularly the area around the Olympus at Ross Apartments, has a history of human trafficking. Investigators could not rule out the possibility that Prisma became a target. Her vulnerability, displayed in her distressed state on surveillance footage, may have made her an easy mark. Trafficking networks often exploit chaotic circumstances, and Prisma's unusual behavior that day suggested she might have been drugged or coerced. The investigation scrutinized Prisma's personal and professional circles. Her recent jobs included positions as a paralegal, a car dealership employee, and a dancer at local clubs. These environments brought her into contact with many people, some of whom may have had unsavory intentions. Reports that Prisma had expressed fears of being followed in the weeks leading up to her disappearance added weight to this theory. The discovery of her slashed tires further suggested someone might have been targeting her. Some speculated that Prisma may have disappeared intentionally, overwhelmed by the pressures in her life. Balancing work, motherhood, and her tumultuous personal relationships might have driven her to a breaking point. However, those closest to Prisma dismissed this idea, pointing to her devotion to her son, Dominic. She would never willingly leave him, her family repeatedly emphasized. Several unsettling details from Prisma's final day added to the mystery. Witnesses at E-Bar Tex-Mex described Prisma's behavior as erratic. She had been drinking for hours after her ex-boyfriend left, leading to a verbal altercation with the staff before they cut her off. While it was initially assumed she was intoxicated, her family raised the possibility that she had been drugged. Her disoriented actions later in the day seemed inconsistent with someone simply overindulging in alcohol. In the weeks before her disappearance, Prisma expressed fears that someone was following her. She purchased a handgun for protection and confided in friends about her unease. The slashed tires on her Jeep suggested she might have had a real reason to feel paranoid, but investigators could not identify any confirmed threats. Hours before her disappearance, Prisma reportedly pointed her gun at another driver during a road rage encounter. This aggressive and uncharacteristic behavior further demonstrated her escalating stress. However, the incident yielded no suspects or direct connection to her vanishing. Despite the compelling theories, the case hit several frustrating dead ends. The parking garage where Prisma was last seen became the focal point of the investigation, but it offered no answers. Investigators found no physical evidence, such as signs of a struggle or personal belongings, to indicate what might have happened to her. Prisma's phone records and financial accounts provided no clues after her disappearance. Her phone stopped transmitting signals, and there was no activity on her credit or debit cards. This abrupt cessation of activity suggested she was no longer able to use them, either because of foul play or incapacitation. Prisma's ex-boyfriend Ryan, initially a person of interest, was cleared after surveillance footage confirmed his alibi. He was out of the apartment complex at the time Prisma arrived and was accounted for at other locations throughout the evening. The haunting footage of Prisma pacing and crying near the elevator, coupled with her inexplicable disappearance, has left investigators and her family grasping for answers. How could a young mother vanish from a busy apartment complex, surrounded by cameras and potential witnesses, without a trace? These unanswered questions fueled public speculation and media interest, turning Prisma's case into a symbol of the unsettling reality that even in a world saturated with technology and surveillance, people can still disappear without explanation. The more investigators uncovered, the more baffling the case became. Each theory seemed plausible, yet none provided the closure her family desperately sought. Would new evidence surface to break the case open, or would Prisma's story remain an unresolved tragedy? 4 years have passed since Prisma Reyes disappeared, and the investigation remains active, yet painfully stagnant. Mesquite police, working in conjunction with the FBI and other agencies, have interviewed hundreds of individuals and followed every lead, but no solid breakthroughs have emerged. Surveillance footage, phone records, and forensic evidence offer only fragments of a picture that refuses to come into focus. Despite the passage of time, law enforcement continues to appeal to the public for tips, holding out hope that even the smallest clue could unlock the mystery. For Prisma's family, the search for answers has been both a mission and a heartbreak. Her stepfather, Dan Fuchs, has dedicated himself to keeping her story alive. "I can't stop looking for her," he says. "Not just for us, but for Dominic. He deserves to know what happened to his mother." Prisma's son, Dominic, now 10 years old, has faced the unthinkable, growing up without the woman who was his entire world. The family walks a delicate line, trying to provide him with love and stability while shielding him from the weight of their unanswered questions. Yet the emotional toll is evident. He doesn't ask about her often, Dan explains, but when he does, we struggle to find the words. The case is defined by its haunting ambiguities. Investigators remain perplexed by the events in the parking garage. Why was Prisma so distressed? Did she meet someone who meant her harm, or did she leave the complex of her own volition and encounter danger elsewhere? The possibility of foul play looms large, but so does the shadow of chance, being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Human trafficking, a targeted attack, or even an unknown medical emergency are all plausible scenarios, yet no evidence solidifies any one theory. For Prisma's family and the investigators still working her case, the hope of resolution endures. Each day without answers is a reminder of how fragile life can be, and how critical community involvement is in solving these tragedies. Until the truth comes to light, her loved ones hold on to one unwavering belief: Prisma Reyes' story is not over and justice must be found. Prisma Reyes' disappearance is a chilling reminder of how life can change in an instant. For her family, every day without answers deepens their anguish, yet they continue to fight for her, fueled by love and hope. Her story is not just about a missing person, it's a call for awareness, vigilance, and community action. If you have any information, no matter how insignificant it may seem, it could be the missing piece to solve this puzzle. Contact the Mesquite Police Department or Crime Stoppers anonymously. Your help could bring closure to a family that has spent years in heartbreak and uncertainty. What would you do if someone you loved vanished without a trace? Share your thoughts below and join us in keeping Prisma's story alive, because every voice matters in the search for truth and justice.